Hi, it's Ramsey Dewey over here in Shanghai, China. Welcome to another edition of Q&A with the Coach. Today we have a question from our friend Mateo. Mateo, hey, what's up, man? Mateo actually came over here to Shanghai, visited in person, got to do some sparring with the guy. Great guy. He actually appears in one of our episodes of MMA Fighters Try Out Self-Defense Techniques. Go check it out. So, Mateo says, "Hey Ramsey, it's me again. I've been worried about being able to train striking, grappling, and MMA as an adult working man. I have the time to do it, but my body tends to give up, and I start to feel tired during work, which I can't allow to happen often. I try to do a session of striking and one of grappling every day. Should I keep doing that, or maybe should I train just one aspect a day? Thank you so much for your response." All right, Mateo, that's a great question. When you are working, man, when you're working full time and you want to train full time, that can definitely seem like a conflict of interest, especially if you're doing two-a-days like that. If you can pull that off, that's good. The more training, the more time you can dedicate to the craft, the better you're going to get at it, within reason, of course. If you're wearing yourself thin, on the other hand, that's going to be rough. It's going to be rough. Your question reminded me of when I was in college. I was 18 years old. I ended up working full-time at the same time that I was going to school. And I had these two jobs. Two part-time jobs ended up being full-time hours. And then I had school on top of that. And I remember just being completely exhausted when I would get home, just completely exhausted. Oh, it wasn't just physically, it was mentally taxing, to the point where I felt like I can't do this. I just can't. Like, I don't know if I can physically make it through my second job of the day, let alone school, or do any training on the side, which, yeah, really just wasn't happening at the time. And I remember looking to my older brother for some brotherly advice. And he said to me, "Write a goal list. Get out a sheet of paper and write some goals." I said, "How's that gonna help? I got too much on my plate." "Write goals," he said. So I said, "All right, fine, I'll write some goals." So I took out this sheet of paper and I wrote down, well, I didn't write down anything. At first I said, "What am I supposed to write? Not be tired when I go to work?" And my brother said, "Exactly. Write that down. That's your goal. Don't be tired at work." I thought, all right, fine. So I wrote that down. Don't be tired at work. What else are your goals, basically? And I wrote out some goals. Don't be tired when I get home. Basically, just don't be tired throughout the day. He said, "All right, those are good goals. Now, how are you going to do it?" I was like, heck if I know. Wishful thinking, magical thinking doesn't seem to work in the real world. You know what magical thinking is? It's the idea that we can will something into existence, that wishing will make it so. That if we want it to happen, it will simply happen, and that's not how reality works. You have to act upon your wishes to make them so. And so I thought, I don't know, how the heck am I supposed to make this whim of mine a reality? To not be tired at work and not be tired when I get home. So I can actually have energy to do something with my life besides work. And I honestly don't remember what I wrote next, but I do remember what he said. How are you going to make that happen? And so I wrote something, some nonsense act that I was going to do to make that happen. And what that was isn't so important as the fact that I wrote it down, that I was going to do something to make that happen. I was going to consciously participate in the act of making that happen. And I hung that list up above my bed so I would see it every night before I went to bed and every morning when I woke up. And it was ever present in my mind. And I saw that thing I wrote, whatever it was, I don't remember what it was, that thing I was going to do to make it happen. And I remember thinking, well, what else can I make happen? What else can I do to contribute to this? And I started thinking about a lot of things, one of which was my sleep schedule, which was way off. Man, I remember staying up late, because college is an exciting time when you're a young man and there are girls who live across the road that you want to go and flirt with or whatever. And so I would stay up late a lot, and I would, get to bed late and sleep in as much as possible, thinking, if I can just eke out a few more minutes, I'll be less tired. But you know what? You know what I learned from that process? There's a lot of wisdom in Ben Franklin's old aphorism, early to bed, early to rise, makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. When I started to fix my sleeping schedule, something magical happened. I got less tired at work, and less tired when I came home. I started paying attention to what I was eating, and I was not eating very well. Food is fuel. You have to think of food as fuel. And I certainly didn't. I just thought of food as eat the bare minimum to stay alive, because I was trying to pinch pennies, trying to save some money there. And I was spending the absolute minimum to get by. The absolute minimum. Man, I was a stick. I was a weakling stick man, basically, with skin on bones, just eating the bare minimum to survive. And I remember one day, some friends of mine invited me over for pork chops, and that was the first time I'd put, a piece of meat in my mouth for the longest time, and I remember feeling just really, really good after that, whoa, some food with sustenance, with actual calories, with some fat and some protein and some nutrients, makes a huge difference in how you feel, man. So you could take my brother's advice and write yourself a list of goals. I'm going to be less tired. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. You can write a schedule. You can schedule your training. You can restrict your training if you want to. Because as romanticized as the idea of 2-a-day training is, because that's what badass cage fighters do, right? 2-a-day training sessions. It's what tough guys do. And you want to be a tough guy. And you are a tough guy, Mateo. I've sparred with you. You're a good martial artist, man. And you got a ton of potential to be a significantly better martial artist. Right? And you want to live up to your potential. And especially as a young man, it seems like there's a finite limit to the amount of time you have. And there is. Make no mistake, there is a finite limit to the amount of time you have in this world with which to do your work, my friend. But it seems like so much less when you have so much more of it, for some reason. At the other end of the spectrum, in your 20s, as opposed to in your 40s, where you really do have less time on your hands. You got less of a life to live. For some reason, as a younger man, it seems like, if I don't get this done now, it's the end of the world. And understandably so, because the less time you have lived, even small increments of time, are more significant percentages of your life. For example, waiting 5 minutes for a 4-year-old. I have a 4-year-old daughter. 5 minutes is a long time for her to wait. She doesn't like it. It's a matter of life and death waiting for 5 minutes, because to a 4-year-old, 5 minutes is a significant, at least a much more significant percentage of her life than it is for me at 41. 5 minutes is meh, that's 5 minutes. 5 minutes closer to death, but to her it's like, I haven't lived that long, man. 5 minutes is everything. So I could give you my brother's advice, and it's good advice. Write a list, write some goals, keep them where you see them, and all that. But at the same time, take inventory of your life. What is necessary? What is helping? What is detracting? How's your sleep schedule? How is your eating? How's the quality of the food you're getting in? Do you take the time to breathe, to get oxygen into your body, to oxygenate your blood on the regular? Do you take the time to stretch? All of these little things that can facilitate recovery, recuperation, those things that professional fighters should, and also everyday average people should do to facilitate recovery so they feel better the next day after work or after training. It's entirely possible you may be doing too much. A session of grappling, a session of striking, and a full-time workload. So be really honest about that. Does doing the grappling session and the striking session in the same day, does that facilitate learning? Or are you just so tired when you get to the next one? Does it feel like, I'm gonna eke through this however I can? And maybe you don't get as much out of it as you would if you went in full strength. I had a question recently from this guy asking about warm-ups, because in his gym, he goes to a Muay Thai gym, the warm-ups are super intense. It's like a half an hour of jumping around, killing yourself, to the point when it comes time to learn technique, he's got nothing left in the gas tank. And he feels like, I can't learn under these conditions. This is not conducive to learning. I'm just gasping for breath. I can barely move. I can't focus on technique because the warm-up is just too exhausting. So what do I do? So if that's the case, if you do have too much on your plate, pick your sacrifice. So wise men do. We don't make more time. We make sacrifices. We get rid of the things that we can and should do without in order to make room for something better, growth and development, gains, skills. So Mateo, you're a smart dude, man. You're a smart guy. We had some lengthy conversations after training. It's a smart young man we're talking about right here. Physically fit, all those great attributes. And again, Mateo, I want to see you go as far in martial arts as you can. And sometimes the hardest thing to do is simply sit back and rest and allow your body to do its work that it's already programmed to do automatically, to rebuild. A lot of weightlifters hate rest days because it's addictive behavior. When you get addicted to those endorphins, you go in the gym and you lift those weights and you feel good, you feel pumped, you feel strong. But scientific literature says we should take some time off once in a while to rest and to recover and to allow your body to rebuild. And that's not fun. That doesn't give us those endorphins. That doesn't make us feel pumped. That doesn't make us feel strong in the short run. But you got to play the long game here. Be really honest about how that makes you feel in the long run, not just the short run. Work is important, man. We need to work. We need to work, and it's not just to gain money. It's not just to feed yourself and put a roof over your head. Work is an important principle. You got to learn how to learn how to learn if you want to be a great martial artist. And the way you do that is through work. A lot of people who grow up in cities are often astonished by the work ethic of those who grow up in rural areas, out in the countryside, farmers in particular. because those guys work from childhood. Labor laws are a little bit different. Actually, a whole lot different as far as agriculture is concerned in the United States. You know, children can't be forced to go to work in a factory, but they certainly can be asked by their parents to wake up at 4 in the morning and go milk the cows and develop this crazy grip strength that you don't see on other humans, and change sprinkler pipes and move these things around and buck hay and develop these giant, like, tennis ball sized muscles that pop out of the forearms in really weird ways you never see on anybody else who works out at a conventional gym. And these guys are really strong because they work. They understand that principle of work. That it just simply has to be done in order to make you meet your human potential. And a lot of times when these kids with that farm strength, and when I say farm strength, I'm not just talking about the hay bucking muscles, which, you know, that's a real thing. I'm talking about the mental strength, the mental fortitude that comes with that you earn through work. It's why wrestlers have done so well in the sport of MMA. Not so much because wrestling is the greatest martial art ever. I mean, it's good. There's some really good stuff you need to know from wrestling. But more importantly is the work. That wrestlers know how to work. They know how to physically work. And that is something that you might think you're already doing if you're a martial artist. You might think, well, yeah, my martial art is work too. But if you haven't wrestled, you don't really understand that. It's a different type of thing. It's more akin to farm strength as opposed to gym strength. The functional fitness that it takes to wake yourself up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go milk the cows. That's a different type of strength. That's mental strength. That is mental fortitude. That is intestinal fortitude. When it's freezing outside, when it's 30 degrees below freezing out there in rural Idaho, and you gotta wake up so early it might as well just be night, when everybody else in their right mind is sleeping, and you wake up, and you do this early because you have to go to school early to go to wrestling practice. Man, the farmer wrestlers I knew, man, that's a whole different level of mental strength and fortitude. I grew up with these guys who grew up on farms. They did their workload at home, the cows and the hay in the fields and all this other stuff they had to do that made them physically strong but also mentally strong. And then they joined the wrestling team on top of that. Man, talk about mental fortitude. Man, these guys had it. So work is important. Even if you don't work on a farm, even if you don't work toward the goal of being the best wrestler in high school or college or whatever you do, even if that's not available to you. If you are a city dweller, you live in a major metropolitan city and you haven't had the opportunity to engage in physical work, where you need to have your wits about you, where you need to have your body present and healthy, like our friend Mateo was saying, right? If he's not cognizant, if he's not there, that's a big problem in his line of work, okay? Even if you work as an accountant, crunching numbers, if you work as a medical professional, if you work in whatever field, that work is important. The fact that you are dedicated enough to wake yourself up in the morning and go to work for a cause greater than just you. Because work is the work toward being something less selfish, something more selfless. And that's tough to do if you're tired, right? It's tough to do if you're tired. Make a very honest evaluation of yourself. What can you remove from the schedule? Obviously not the work. You need that. As we mentioned already, not just for the monetary gains, but you need that for this and for this. I trust your judgment, my friend. What are you willing to sacrifice? You know. Thanks for watching. Get out there and train.